did not start with computer science. When I first started going to college, I think I went there were so many majors. I've done everything from fashion design to psychology to pre-law. Um, and I'm sure there was a couple more in there. I started the computer science degree probably about 20 years ago, and I got, made it a good way through it, and then recently went back to finish.
Oh, I didn't realize that you had started in computer science.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about that journey, because we met and you had a different role. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yep. So I started the computer science degree 20 years ago, not necessarily because I was interested in it, just because I heard that they made a lot of money and that's something that I was going to be signed on for. Didn't really realize how difficult it was. And although I didn't finish the program, I did make it through enough of it that I was able to become a technical recruiter. And that was Matisa, how you and I had met. So although I didn't know how to code, I knew how to talk to software engineers. I knew the difference, between front end and back end and all the other little, and all the differences changed through the years. Now we talk about it a little bit differently sometimes, but I could talk the talk. So it was enough to get me going in the technical world. And then I was a technical recruiter for probably close to 15 years or so.
I think as we start our careers, or at least when we're still in high school and even in our early college years, we don't really understand what positions are. For example, nobody knows what HR is. So can you explain just a little bit what a technical recruiter does?
Sure. So they can be a little bit different, and recruiting has changed through the years. But basically, what my job was, for the most part, is to find software engineers, and not just software engineers, that's an overgeneralization, but technical talent to bring into the company. So, for instance, the first company that I did that for was a company called Natisa. They were a BI appliance builders. So we were interested not only in software engineers, but also, and it was still kind of new at that point. Data analytics wasn't fully matured as it is now. So we looked for anything in that. But that also, it wasn't just people who worked on the product. It could be product managers who were more talking about the product. It could be internal technical people, so IT and help desk and those sorts of things. It could be nowadays, there's a lot of people who work on the environment, maybe even more so than they did before, because the environment's all in the cloud. There's lifts and shifts, and there's all these different things. So there's some people who are product focused. There's some people who are focused on the population, the employee population. There's some people who are focused on more the environments that the software engineers work in. So there's a lot of different aspects of the technical talent that I would be looking for.
What was your drive to continue and finish your computer science degree?
I think there was a couple things. So I wanted to finish a degree. I had tried so hard before. For 8 years. I went to school without completing a degree just because I had this, I want to do this. No, I want to do this. No, I want to do this. So I wanted to finish a degree. And at my age, I didn't want it to be a liberal arts degree. There just didn't seem to be much challenge in that, and it wasn't going to get me anywhere. And again, at my age, I wanted a degree. If a degree was going to make a difference, it wasn't going to be an easy marketing. Not that the degrees are easy to get, but there's a lot of people in marketing. There's a lot of people who do that sort of thing, and computer science seemed to be always in demand. So I figured if I was going to get a degree, if it was going to make a difference, computer science would be a good one to get. And I also wanted to challenge myself. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew I was going to learn a lot, and I did. I had to pass discrete math, which took me 2 times. But I did it with a B plus the second time. So I just really wanted to earn a degree. I wanted to, have people kind of be a little bit impressed about the kind of degree that I earned. And also, I never wanted to be a software engineer, but I saw myself maybe doing something a little more customer centric. As a recruiter, you talk to outside people all the time. So for me, I thought it would be not seamless, but a fairly easy transition to stay outwardly focused, but with a technical talent in customer success, maybe something to that, or product management, because I could talk the talk.
I think there are some misconceptions as to what a computer scientist does. And sometimes I'll ask an adult and they'll say, well, that's someone who builds computers. And there's a huge range. What are some of the things that you hope to do as a computer scientist? Or I guess the first thing I'm going to back up and say, tell me what a computer scientist does and it seems like I get a different answer every time.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a recruiter, I think I actually know the differences. And I think computer scientist, if you use just that term, would be more someone who sits and codes in whatever language on whatever stack. even when you look at the degree programs, there's computer science with information technology or data science. So there's all these different things that you can do within computer science. There are things that are going to concentrate on algorithms, and then there are things that are going to concentrate on front end, and they're very different, and one cannot do the other one's job. So if I had to generalize computer science, I would say someone who works within the technical field, and that's very, very broad. But I think these days, anyone who has that major or that degree can do springboard into anything. But again, it's not that you're going to start coding in C# and then you're going to go, you know what, I want to be a DevOps person. They're not interchangeable. So you do have to kind of pick a path. But if you have the savvy, you can change courses with enough effort, because you are technically savvy and you do get the kind of the different parts of computers or the languages or the stacks or whatever it is. But they are specialized, and there's so many different things you can do. It's just crazy the amount of things you can do with this degree.
I think that's really important for young people, or even people who are in college or maybe have recently graduated, that they need to know that your career is very agile, and that you can start in one area and then you can pursue other directions, but that experience just builds and builds, and you're always dipping into that. And from whatever you learned and whatever, I think you had told me in the past that you had studied fashion design, but even a career in that helps you. You're always taking that big pool of knowledge and applying it to different things. And with computer science, I think it's personally, I believe that people just need to ask the question, or to say, what kinds of computer science are you doing? Or it's okay to get a little specific. You can be broad, but maybe you dip in and say, well, I'd really love to work in this end. I realize starting out, maybe I'm not going to get into that, but I would love to be able to focus towards that, or even keep it broad and general and say, I want to learn all about all the different aspects of it. So I think that's great. And your story is important because I think a lot of people go into higher education thinking, well, I want to be this, and not, and maybe they end up changing the course a little or a lot. My personal favorite piece of advice, I'd love to know yours as well. What's the best piece of advice that you were given? But mine, it was, your career is not, don't think of it as a ladder. A lot of parents are like, you gotta climb that career ladder and you gotta be a success. But so often it's more of a lattice, that you have all these different paths that you can take to get to the top. Sometimes you make a lateral move. Sometimes you actually go down and around to get around a vine. So, and I realize this interview isn't about me, but I always love to share that. Is there a particular piece of advice that you got once that you've
I've gotten a lot of advice through the years, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I don't think that there's any one particular piece of advice that I've ever gotten. I think the piece of advice that I would give people is, I know, your motivation here is for high school kids and kind of thinking about the future. I did not do well in school, as we discussed, and my career and my education prospects were not, but I did go to a lot of different colleges and I had a lot of different things. I worked in hospitality for years, then I worked in social services for 8 years, and then I got into recruiting. So I've kind of had these kind of really crazy swings in my career. And I always worked. I always had a really good work ethic, which I think is the number one thing, no matter what you're doing. I always made money, even waiting tables. I worked really hard. I worked a lot. I had my own bills and I paid them and so on and so forth. But I think it's easy for people to get discouraged if they're not right where they want to be when they want to be there. And sometimes you have to let things evolve. Sometimes I'm an extrovert. I don't know if that's obvious, but I'm an extrovert. So I think that my waitressing and bartending really led to the recruiting in one way or another, because I'm talking to people, I'm talking to all sorts of people. I know how to handle different situations. So if you graduate with computer science and you don't get a software engineering job right away, don't be afraid to look at something else. A, you might like it better, but B, you kind of, there's a little bit of fate involved, I think sometimes. I fell into a lot of the things that I did. Partly because I'm just interested in so many different things. So I kind of give everything a try. Now I'm kind of looking at the fourth iteration of my career. But I would say that don't get discouraged if you're not CEO within 2 years, because there's a lot of different ways it could go. And if you see an opportunity within a company that they don't have someone doing something that you really want to do, never be afraid to go to the people you work with and bounce ideas off them. I am big, big, big on ideas, and a lot of them are really bad. Some of them are good, though. You're going to have some bad ones. I think Michael Jordan, or no, it was a hockey player that says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Take all the shots. That's kind of my best advice: is take all the shots.
Did you have any mentors growing up, or do you do any mentoring?
Um, in my last position, I managed 10 people, and there was a lot of mentoring involved with that. So they were all, I would say, kind of in their, maybe 7 to 8 years into their work careers. And there was a lot of mentoring in regards to not how do I recruit, because it's not that that's black and white. You kind of know how to do that after a while. It's about handling situations. So I was good with that. And again, my strength, I think, is the way I deal with people. So that's the mentoring that I was able to do on top of the recruiting. In regards to my mentors, there were several people that I definitely looked up to within my career. Kellyanne, she was VP of HR at Natiza, and she always had such a drive, and she was always very fair. And I don't talk to her often, but the few times that I've gotten in touch with her, she's always been, "What can I do for you?" I'm always happy to talk. So she's, although she's not about to hire me, there's no reason that we professionally should still really be in contact. She's always willing to help, and she herself has been very successful throughout her career. And then there are also technical people that I really looked up to as well. And I think it's hard for tech. A lot of times, VP of engineers, they're really technical, right? So they're maybe not, their strength is not their extrovert abilities or things to that nature. But I always am very impressed with, like, Jim Baum is a good scenario. He, WPI graduate, technical guy, probably one of the more social people I know. So it was always interesting to see kind of the technical blend with the extrovert, with the business and the MBAs and all that. So I always really admired people who did a lot of different things, and it all came together for them in the end.
Yeah, I think you really nailed that, because it is not just one thing that
Mhm.
you have your career journey. It is trying and doing all kinds of things and meeting new people, and not assuming that someone's going to be boring because they're an engineer, or breaking those stereotypes down, and getting involved and pursuing those things that you have been interested in or suddenly become interested in. And I think young people especially need to not be shy, that more people are out there that want to help, and they would be
Mhm.
shocked to know that just because someone has a very high position in a company, or they're the company owner, a phone call, they're almost always happy to listen and give advice if they're too busy for it, or if they're a little bit older. A lot of people are really looking for opportunities where they can help and mentor and offer advice.
Mhm.
So I think people need to uh, do what you're saying, and just jump in and go for it. And
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for networking too.
yeah,
Just talking to people. I think people really undervalue, career fairs and all that. And as someone who's worked a lot of career fairs with young people, um, there's a lot to be said. As someone who's working career fair, I don't really know what your grades are when I'm talking to you. I know how you're dealing with me. I know how you're interacting. I can kind of sense a little bit of your motivation. How did you shake my hand? Eye contact, all of those things. I can tell you that probably about 90% of the time that person looks me in the eye and is engaging and sounds like they're motivated and has ideas, is the person I'm going to choose over the 4.0 GPA. Just because it's a package. It's always a package.
yeah, and the soft skills, everyone talks about them, and um, people sometimes gloss over them, but they are so critical. And usually the easiest thing to do, smile, just look motivated, look interested, and practice them.
Yeah,
So
it's funny. When I go to RIT, they have a computer floor where it's just computer science kids. And as part of their, I'm going to call it a membership for lack of a better way of saying it, they make them plan 2 social events every semester because they realize how important it is. And they don't want them to be just robotic computer software engineers. They want them to have that softer side. They want them to communicate well with others. And when I heard that, more people need to be doing that kind of thing.
right.
I think the best thing that people can do is follow their passion. We, as recruiters, as hiring managers, we love passion of every kind, and I think it's important to mention that passion can come in a lot of different ways. So you can be passionate about computer science. You can also be passionate about the on-off switch on a computer, and there's a whole career that you can have in that and how that interacts. So there's so many little pieces. Think of all the things that high tech incorporates at this point, and you can be interested in the smallest little piece, which can lead you to great success in a career. So you don't have to sit and code in C++. Well, I don't know if anyone does that anymore, but you don't have to do that to be a computer scientist. There's so many avenues, and just truly do what makes you happy. I always think about, the guy who makes the little umbrellas and drinks, that guy made, who knows what kind of grades that guy got. But he was passionate about umbrellas and drinks. And, that, or the woman, could be a woman too, they made a great success of that. So figure out what really excites you and then do it. And it might be the most obscure thing in the world, but that might be even better because then there's not a lot of competition to do it. But just do what you really want to do because there's a niche for it somewhere.
I think that's the wrap up. So, but I want to just return, so this will be edited in.
Sure.
How did you get through the math? So you were not a good student, as you mentioned, and I'm going to have nightmares about going to summer school for math, for gym, and because that would be the worst.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, were you good in math?
No, I was horrible in math, and I left my discrete math for my last class to earn my degree. And
I'm sorry, what is discrete math? Can you explain that?
So discrete math is there's not a lot of numbers involved. It's more about like balancing. It's not outwardly balancing loads, but theoretically it leads you to that. So it's a lot of subsets. It's a lot of pigeonhole theories. It's a lot of different things that I probably will never use, to be fair. The actual term discrete math is the opposite of finite math. So like discrete math, if I hope I'm getting this right, is like there's a beginning and an end. Like you're dealing with specifics, where finite math is like, you're dealing with more infinite numbers, I guess you could, by the title alone. So it's a lot. It's a lot, and I did it online, which was even more challenging. So the first time I did it, I was so scared of math. They said, okay, that's it. I'm hiring a tutor. Like I'm doing this, I'm getting help because it's online. And I made this mistake of letting it intimidate me. And I also made the mistake of thinking this tutor was going to teach it to me in 1 hour a week. So I didn't really study outside of that because I would get all flustered and I would just sit down with the tutor. And at the end of the day, I flunked the class because I was relying on 1 hour a week to learn discrete math from a tutor, and it just didn't work out. So the second time I took it, no tutor, actually sat down, stopped being intimidated by it, and just learned the material. And I think the biggest lesson at my age, apparently I'm still learning lessons. Nothing is really that hard. Like if you give it the time that it deserves, you're going to get through it. And I was really psyched to get a B+. I probably could have done better, to be honest. But it was like my last class and the degree, and I'm working full time at the time. So I just said, let me get through this. I'll do the best I can. But it was, once I stopped thinking I couldn't do it, I actually understood. Yeah. And I did, fairly well. So it was, sometimes you need a tutor. Just don't expect people to teach it to you. You got to sit down, you got to do the work.
Yeah. I think we all want to hear there was a magic potion or something that to avoid the hard work. And kudos to you, because that was one of the reasons why I did not pursue engineering, because people, and I love engineering. I do my own types of engineering.
You do. I see you all the time with your little inventions.
It has always been my passion, but this interview isn't about me. But in all seriousness, is that math phobia is real, and many of us don't do things because we are either afraid of the hard work, or didn't have the confidence to know that we could do it, or didn't have the people telling us that we could do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to let people know that is a big reality, is that some of the technical careers do require an awful lot of hard work. But I think the difference is that you're going to apply that knowledge to the future, or even if you don't, it's part of the process. And you may find that something you learned back in a certain class is going to help you, but it's part of the overall experience. And and sometimes we just have to fight our way through it. So
The other part of that
maybe I
that I
will try
really
it.
enjoy, having a computer science degree and having taken discrete math, it's funny because as someone who barely graduated high school, now all these people think I'm super smart. And if I'm talking to someone at a party or networking or something, like I now all these know all these math terms that people like really wowed by, which is, I came from someone who barely graduated high school to, oh my God, you've got a computer science degree, you must be so smart, which I'm not, but it sounds like I am. So it's all,
Right,
there's a little bit of pride, I guess, which is nice.
right. Well, you are smart, and it's a dedication and everything. It's the whole package that. Um, but like you said, you need that confidence, and
Mhm.
I think that's part of all of our support systems that we build through friends and um, other students and just people with kind of those experiences.
Mhm.
And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. This has been really great, and I'm sure you're going to inspire many, many people, old and young, and everybody in between. So thanks again.
Absolutely happy to help and let me know if I can help further.